chance to meet a famous artist. But unfortunately, a lot of the famous artists we've talked about are already passed away, they're already dead, or they're busy and famous and they're busy working on artwork, and they can't really take the time to come in and talk to us. So I thought it'd be neat if I pretended that if I was a real famous artist and came to talk to you about my life, and that way you'd have a chance to pretend to meet someone and you'd have an idea about what it was like for them. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. You know that I'm really Mrs. Murphy, but today I want you to pretend that I'm a famous American artist named Mary Cassette. Okay? She lived, if she was still living now, she'd be about 150 years old. So she was born about 150 years ago. Okay? I have a couple requests. When I'm talking, I want you to save your questions till the end, because you'll have a chance to ask me anything you want to. Okay? You'll notice that up back here I painted a background. I want you to be able to see what it was like inside a house back then. Okay? It was real important to have tea, so I painted a tea set and a cup. Right? You'll notice that there's a dresser here, and on top of the dresser there's a basin and a pitcher. Back then a lot of people didn't have bathtubs. It was kind of expensive to have bathtubs. So what people did is they warmed up water on the stove, they put it in a pitcher, they poured it in the basin, and when they wanted to bathe themselves, they just washed themselves in the water. Okay, so it was a little bit different back then. People wore dresses like this. Hats were really a big, important fashion statement. Okay, and you'll see that I have these little ribbon roses on my dresses. What that is just a piece of ribbon that's been turned around and made into the shape of a rose. Okay? And in the back of my dress, this is called a bustle. There's a little pillow in here that makes it kind of stick out a little bit more. But this is the type of clothing that Mary Cassette would have worn. Right? So when I start talking, I want you to pretend today that I'm actually the Mary Cassette, the artist, and I want you to think about that and save your questions till the end, okay? All right. These are some pictures I did of myself. This is a self-portrait in watercolor. A self-portrait means that I painted it of myself. I looked in the mirror and I did the painting. Here's another painting of myself in oils. Okay, so this is what I really looked like. Thank you. All right, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on May 22nd, 1844 at 11 p.m. I was born on Rebecca Street. Okay? And an interesting thing, Mrs. Murphy went to school in Pittsburgh, so that's why maybe she picked this artist as a special one. No one really knows what house I lived in, but I was born on this street. Okay? If we look at the map here, we know that Alaska is normally way up here in the corner, real big. But if we go all the way across the United States to this dot, that's where Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is. Okay? And so that's where it is. My father was the mayor of the town, so we were a pretty wealthy family. Okay? I was the third oldest out of 4 children. And back then, medicine wasn't as good as it is today, and I had 2 brothers that died, so there would have been 6 of us in our family. Okay? So we had a real nice life there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Something happened when I was 7 years old that changed my entire life. Okay? And I'll show you a picture of what I looked like when I was 7 years old. Okay, here's a picture of me right there. Okay? And you can see I'm with my brothers and my father. When I was 7 years old, we took a special trip. We left Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we rode across and ended up here at the ocean, took a big boat and sailed across the ocean. It took about 3 months and ended up in Europe, in France, okay, in the city of Paris. And we stayed there for about 5 years. And it was just the best trip because I was able to go to all these different art museums and see beautiful artwork. And I even learned how to speak French. And I decided then, when I was 7 years old, that I wanted to be an artist. Okay, so it was just a really exciting trip. We came back about 5 years later, when I was about 12. We sailed all the way back across the ocean, back to Pittsburgh, and I decided to tell my father that I wanted to be an artist. So I said, Papa, I want to be an artist. And he said, Mary, I would rather see you dead. Can you believe that? He was so upset that I wanted to be an artist. Well, it wasn't so much that I wanted to be an artist, it was because I wanted to work. And because I was semi-wealthy, okay, I had a little bit of money, the women that had money were not supposed to work. It was beneath them. What they were supposed to do is wear real nice dresses and have tea with other women, but they weren't supposed to work. So he was really upset that I wanted to work. And after a while, he decided that he would not be so upset, and he let me go to art school. So what we did is we traveled to Philadelphia, which is just at the other side of Pennsylvania, and I started to go to an art school there called the Philadelphia School of Fine Arts. And I went there for 4 years. And things were different, like I said back then, and women couldn't be in the same classes as the men. There was something called Victorian society, and let's say if someone was coming to date me, and I couldn't be in the same room as that man if my sister or my mother or someone else wasn't there with me. So I couldn't be in the same room alone. That's just the way things work. So I couldn't learn to paint with the other male artists. What I had to do is go off by myself to some museum and paint pictures that other artists had already done. Okay? And I'll show you a picture that I did. It's kind of like a copy of another person's artwork. Okay, this is a copy of the artist Rembrandt. This is something that I did when I was in art school. Okay, so I had to copy other artists' work. I also had to do, I had to use statues and casts from different bodies. So I drew arms, but I didn't get to draw live things. One time I was lucky enough I was able to draw a real live cow. But I had to draw mostly from statues or mostly from pictures that other people did. Okay? And after a time, after 4 years, I graduated from that school. And I told my father I needed to go back to Europe to learn more about art, because right then there weren't as many schools here in the United States that gave real good art lessons and things. So I got back on the boat and went back over to Europe. Oops. And on that fell. Went back over to Europe and went to art school. I tried to get into an art school there called the Salon. And to get into the Salon, you had to do a special painting, and they had to judge it and see if it was good enough for you to go to the school. So I'll show you the painting that got me accepted into the Salon, the famous art school. Okay? And I want to ask you if you think it looks different or the same as the ones in the background here. Anyone have any ideas? Does it look the same as this kind back here or different? Yes?
Different.
What's different about it?
Because it looks like it's really real.
Okay, this looks real, okay? The ones back here are kind of a little bit, they're a lot more color. This is real dark, too. Do you notice how dark it is compared to the other picture? Okay, and that's something we'll talk about in a little bit. Well, this is the painting that got me accepted into the school. Well, the same thing happened there. Because I was a woman, I wasn't allowed to take classes with the men. So I had to do the same thing. I had to go to museums, and I had to do copies of other people's artwork. Okay? And as I was at the Salon, had a whole bunch of rules that I had to follow. And I'll talk to you about some of those rules. In order to do paintings and have them sold, I needed to follow these rules. The first rule was that I needed to have heavenly skies in my pictures. Let's say even if it was raining outside, I had to put nice little puffy clouds in my pictures. Okay? My paintings had to tell a story. I couldn't just do a picture of a dog if there wasn't a story behind it. A lot of times my pictures came from Bible stories and things like that. Okay? My picture had to be balanced. I couldn't have a real big thing on one side and then a little thing on another side. They had to be about the same size. Okay? The picture had to look like a photograph. It had to look real. Right? The people had to look better than they were in real life. Let's say I was painting a person that had a real big nose. I couldn't paint that big nose on him. I had to make it a real nice, small nose. Okay? So I had to make people look better. Only rich people could get their picture painted. I couldn't paint pictures of poor, unimportant people. Okay? The last thing, one of the last things, pictures of the people were real stiff. If you look at this picture here, this is a famous painting by the artist Rembrandt. We talked about him a little bit before. And you see how he's sitting? He's got his hands together like this, and he's sitting real stiff. Okay? My paintings had to be real stiff. people had to be sitting kind of up straight and looking. And the last thing, I had to mix all my paint with brown and black so that everything was real dark. Kind of looked like it was in the shadows. Okay, and those are the important rules that I had to follow. Well, I followed their rules, and I'll show you another painting that I did following the rules. Okay, so this is a picture of a woman sewing. Do you see it's just like the other one. It's kind of dark, and I followed their rules. She's sitting kind of stiff. Yes. Yes. That's okay. That's not going to bother me. Well, you know, I didn't like to follow all these rules. I didn't like the paintings the way they looked. Remember, we're going to save our questions till everything. So what happened is, I met a man who changed my whole life. I met another artist. His name was Edgar Degas. And what happened was he told me that 30 other artists, people like Vincent van Gogh and some other famous artists called the Impressionists, were doing something different. They were breaking all the rules that the Salon had. And they were doing whatever they wanted as far as their painting. Okay? So they asked me if I wanted to join them. I was the only woman that was invited to join them. And I started painting the way I wanted to. And I'll show you my first painting that I did. Okay? And I was so excited that I finished it. Even my friend Edgar Degas helped me with the background in here. And I gave it to the Salon. You know what they said? They said, "We don't like it. You broke all the rules. We won't even hang it in our art shows." Can someone raise their hand and tell me some of the rules that I broke? Some of the things that I didn't do? Yes. Right, I didn't mix with brown and black. It's not a real dark picture. Okay, yes. All right, I didn't copy other people's pictures. Yes. Okay, it's not real dark. Remember some of the other ones? Is she rich and famous? Is she a real important person? No, I didn't paint a real important, famous person. What else? If you had your hand up, you were going to say that. Okay. Is it balanced? Is she the same size as the dog?
No.
No. So it's not balanced. Okay. Other things. She's not sitting real stiff, is she? She's just relaxed in a chair. She's not really concerned about sitting up straight and being. There aren't any heavenly skies in my picture. Other things. Yes. Okay. Does it tell a story?
No.
What's the story? Girl or dog? Okay, so I broke a lot of rules with this picture, right? But you know, unfortunately, the Salon didn't like it, but a lot of other people did, and my artwork started to sell. Even though the Salon didn't like what I was doing, some people that were buying pictures did. And I started to do two kinds of artwork that I'm going to show you. This is one of them. This is an oil painting. Do you see how the colors are kind of mixed together? Okay, and you see that this dog is also the same as this one here. I used to raise these dogs. They're called Belgian Griffons. Okay, and this is kind of mixed together. This is an oil painting. And this painting here is a pastel. It's kind of chalky. You can see the lines. What I'm going to do is show you some of the pictures that I did. And most of my pictures are of women and children. And I talked to you about how I couldn't really be in the same room as men without someone else being there. So that's why a lot of them are women and children. And I want you to tell me whether you think it's an oil or a pastel. And I want you to raise your hand and tell me what you think. Look for those. Does it have a lot of chalky lines, or is it kind of mixed together, oils and pastels? What do you think? Okay, it looks kind of like an oil in some spots, but if you look at these lines, it's a pastel. Okay, so this first one's a pastel. How about this one? Yes? Okay, no? Okay, it's not, it's a pastel. If you see lines, it's probably a pastel. Okay?
Oil.
Raise your hand, please. Yes. Okay, no?
Oil.
Yes. Oils. Do you see how it's kind of mixed together and it looks more real than the pastels do? Okay. Yes.
Oil.
Oils. Good. Now we're getting the hang of it. Okay, yes. Okay. Pastels. Good. Okay, do you see the pictures are mostly of women and children? Yes. Okay. No?
Oil.
Yes.
Oil.
It's an oil. Do you see it? If it looks like it's mixed together, it's more of an oil. Okay, and this is I think where we started off. This is a kind of tough one because it's mixed together so well. Yes.
Oil and
Okay, it looks like both because it's been mixed together, but it's just a pastel. And these are some of my pictures. Well, I got to be more and more famous. And as I got to be more and more famous, I had my family come over and live with me in Europe. I was still living in Europe. And I have some pictures here of my sister that I want to show you. And one of them's an oil and one of them's a pastel. This is my sister Lydia. Who can tell me if this is an oil or a pastel? How about you right here? No?
oil.
It's an oil. You can see that it's mixed together. All right, that's one picture of her. How about this one? Yes. It's a pastel. Good. You can see it's real chalky and it has lines that you can see. Okay? And afterwards, after I was real famous in Europe, I got a special letter, boys, from America. And the letter asked me to do a mural. And a mural is a big painting that's even bigger than this whole room. And I'll let you in on something. I was afraid of ladders. So what happened was I wasn't able to get up on a ladder and paint the very top of it. So I had some men dig a big hole in my studio. And I put the painting down in the hole. And I had some ropes that were attached to it. And when I wanted to do the top of the painting, I had them pull up the ropes and I could do the top. If I wanted to do the middle, I could pull it up a little bit more and paint the middle. If I wanted to do the very bottom, they could pull it up all the way. So I worked on this painting for a long time, and I sent it over to the Chicago World's Fair. And it was in the Chicago World's Fair. And then something happened. When I was supposed to get it back, somehow it was either lost or damaged. But to this day, no one knows what happened to that big painting. It was bigger than this whole room. The only part that I have left is this picture right here. This is the only part that's left. Okay? I realize the baby doesn't have clothes on, but we're not going to be silly about that. It's just a baby. It's called Baby Reaching for the Apple of Wisdom. And that's the only piece that's left out of that big painting. All right, as I got older, like I said, I got more famous, and I had one picture that was real famous in the United States, and that's this one. It's called the boating party.
Fun.
Okay? It's a woman and her daughter on a boat getting rowed across a lake. Okay? And as time went on, I got more famous. I was able to earn a lot of money, and as I got older, I got a disease in my eyes called cataracts. Okay? And it made it harder for me to see. With cataracts, you slowly become blind. And I'll show you a picture of me at 70. Okay, I have a fancy ostrich feather hat on. Okay, and that's a picture of me when I was 70 years old. I was still painting. Okay. And I died at the age of 82, and I was blind for 3 years before I died. So I wasn't able to paint the last 3 years of my life. And that's a story about Mary Cassette. Does anyone have a question right now about anything I said that made you curious, or anything we talked about? Yes. Okay, she went blind because of the disease called cataracts. Something happens. Something happens sometimes when you get older. Okay. Okay. Other things that you have any questions about? Anything. You can ask me anything. Yes.
Maybe that you got lost in the deep, deep ocean.
Okay, maybe the ship wrecked. No one really knows what happened to it. Okay, yes.
Maybe, maybe they got it and actually tore apart and they didn't know.
Okay, maybe it got torn apart and they didn't know where it belonged. Okay, yes.
What are the other pictures around?
Oh, okay. This one's called Woman with a Dog, and it's an oil painting. Okay, it's a Mary Cassette's maid. Her niece came and sat for her. This is one of two girls on the beach. Is this an oil painting or pastel? Someone with their hand up. Okay, yeah. It's an oil painting. Good. Two little kids on the beach. This is one of a mother and her daughter. Okay, this one over here is called Girl with the Red Hat. And this is one of a mother, sewing, and her daughter was there too. Other questions? Yes?
That was passed out.
Okay, that one's pastel. Boy, you're an expert at that now. All right, what we're going to do today, we're going to do something special. Do you remember how I told you that Mary Cassette learned how to do artwork? How did she do that? Yeah.
By going to an art school.
She went to an art school, and then she had to go to museums and copy other people's artwork. Well, today, and I really appreciate the people that are sitting up listening. I know it's been a while that I've been talking. What we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that Mary Cassette did. You're going to learn, just like an artist learns, to do a painting. You're going to copy one of her pictures.